So my Harry Potter inspired Patronus Christmas tree is finally done. So let's jump in. I'm going to show you guys how I decorated and how it all came together. So the first thing that you're starting with is your lights. You can't put anything else on your tree before that is done. When you look at any photos of the Patronus and so on, there's lots of whites, lots of silvers, and also like streaks of blue. And what I found is that cool white LED sometimes brings in that little bit of a blue hue that comes through. So I felt like that kind of captured that Patronus feel. All these years I've been decorating my tree by wrapping lights around the tree the whole way up. Turns out there's another way. I watched a YouTube video on different ways of lighting your tree. Imagine that there is a triangle here. You are going to take your lights and you're going to weave it all the way up through, and that's going to be your first set of lights. And then you're going to imagine that there's a triangle next to that and do your next strand of lights, and you keep doing that until you make your way around. And then go figure, putting lights on your tree isn't actually so difficult after all. So the next thing I wanted was to make my tree feel like winter wonderland. So I started looking at tree flocking. Now I was hoping I was going to have a recipe for a pet-friendly version. I was also trying to find a recipe where I can wash my tree off afterwards. It is an artificial tree that I have, so I was just wanting to be able to take a hose to this once all my decorations are off. The pet-friendly version definitely did not work. The thing is that once I started going into that food zone, suddenly my cats actually were interested in the tree, and as you can see, they actually really enjoyed it instead. So I ended up sticking with a shaving cream and cornstarch mixture, and that seemed to work really well. I didn't add glue to this because, as I said, I want to be able to wash it off afterwards, and so far it looks pretty good. The reason why I went with that shaving cream finish instead is that snow needs to naturally sit on the branches, which is really what I was looking for. And of course, I was reading up everything on tree flocking, and one of the tips that they do give online is think about how snow actually falls, because snow isn't going to fall into the inside of the tree, so it's just going to be landing on the outer branches of your Christmas tree. So just something to keep in mind. So bring out your bag of all your different types of ribbons and just try different things. The one thing I am terrible at is, you see those trees and the ribbons are like perfectly wrapped around the tree. I just can't do it. So I thought, you know what, if you kind of own the fact that this is supposed to be movement and sort of a little bit of messiness, it's actually going to work a whole lot better for you. There is no perfect way of doing this, but in most cases I just unwound the ribbon from its spool and kind of kept that nice loose looping going through it, and then I just made sure that it wove every which way down the tree. It's not all of it is showing, some of it tucks in so it goes deep into the tree, then comes back out someplace else. You've got more transparent with like a little bit of dots and textures and so on, and that just creates that magical gauziness that goes through. I had ones that had like a little bit more texture to it, so not everything is too heavy, and through all of that there's enough there to kind of create that nice light movement going through. So the next layer after the ribbons was the baubles. So that creates a lot of filler for all those different gaps. And again, we're just layering and layering until it starts feeling really full and magical before we put on our Patronus to do those finishing touches. Lots of silvers, lots of whites, lots of different patterns. We've got like glittery baubles right up here in silver. We've got ones that have more of a texture going on. I've got more matte finishes. They have different sizes, different shapes. And right up here, we've got a few of these. I didn't want too much heaviness through the tree, so I added some glass. These are actually those craft baubles that you can buy from the craft store, where you can pull them apart, put your own fillers in, and then close them back up. Instead, I've just hung them as glass baubles. You need a little bit of transparency just to keep the tree feeling light, but it also creates a nice little bit of filler just to finish that off. So your next layer is tree picks. So this just helps add that little extra depth, dimension. So these are sort of plasticky, crystally pieces, so it's got that little bit of a magical feel going on. And then I've popped in a few of these stag ones. These I found at Michael's the other year. So the stag antlers are for Harry Potter's Patronus. Anyways, that just adds that little extra, starting to get into that Patronus feel. So there were three things I did. The first was the Expecto Patronum, which is the spell that is cast to cast your Patronus. Thank you everyone on Instagram who gave me your ideas. What I ended up doing was repeating the spell, but what I ended up doing was doing it on different sizes of lettering. So there has a little bit of difference going on. Now, in terms of printing this, it's like a really thick tracing paper. You can get it at art supply supply stores. You're gonna want to take double-sided tape and stick it to your normal paper before you run it through the printer because it will catch and then get all rumpled up. Basically just print some script fonts, ran that through and then sliced it into strips. Some of these bigger ones, because I've got an A3 printer, I did do them on bigger pieces, and then some of the other ones would be more A4 sized. Tracing paper crumples really easily and it can really make it look like you made a mess. And not on purpose. So what I ended up doing was taking the paper and I kind of created these origami folds. So everything is crumpled, but it's purposely crumpled. So if there were any mistakes, no one can see them. The next thing you are doing is your little Patronus characters. So our first one is Hermione's Otter. So they are plastic figurines. Some of these are good quality ones. Some of these are just cheap Kmart ones. And all I did was take some plaster of Paris and I mixed it with some school glue. And I think just like a little bit of water as well. And you want it, again, just, it's like the chocolate frogs that we made for the last tree. You want it a little bit gloopy. You don't want it too thick, otherwise it actually covers the shape of the animals and you actually lose it. So you just want it where it has a nice coating to it. I think for these ones, it took me 2 coats to get that nice smooth finish. The first one is again, just to kind of get something adhered to the plastic figurine. And then every other layer on top of that is just to create that smoothness so it actually looks not uneven. So we've got a few going on here. We've got Hermione's Otter. You've got Ron, he's got a little dog here. I've got Ginny's horse up down there, and Professor McGonagall's cat up in the corner. And then of course, you're probably wondering, where's the stag? Which is our tree topper. I figured that was the way to make a statement. It is the main piece. You come in, you see the Expecto Patronum, you see the stag, you should get it. I actually took a really cheap, really, I'm sorry Kmart, ugly reindeer. It had these weird like googly eyes, and so those had to go. And then also had these really glittery hooves. And because I wanted this white and clean and beautiful, I took the same idea as what these little guys were and I covered it in like this plaster of Paris school glue mixture. And the main thing is that this has not cost me an arm and a leg to make. So there we go. I've created a space that I feel feels very magical, very Christmassy, and hopefully will get me in the spirit, even though it is currently 41 degrees Celsius out this entire week. I'm just going to close my blinds, turn on my tree. You can see I've got my mantle here. I've got a little electric fireplace. I won't turn on the heat, but I will turn on the flames. And with a cup of butterbeer, I should feel like Christmas is just around the corner. With that, I hope you guys enjoy that, and I will see you in the next video.